You know what I think is about to get stupid? I think we're getting like the tea leaves are readable now. We are going to get an ETH alt season, right? The reason why Athena is up is because as ETH rallies, ETH basis rallies, as participants look for leverage,
Mhm.
they buy the derivatives extend relative to spot, basis increases. Athena helps you capture that. So ETH yields, basically USDE yields on Athena go up as ETH basis goes up. Capital flows in, people see the TVL chart go up, they buy the Athena token, right? That's another flywheel. Aave, same thing is about to happen there. Basically, as ETH starts to bounce off of the lows of this crazy bear cycle, ETH related altcoins are going to full send. So maybe that's excuse me, maybe that's where we get our alt season this time. And then just looking at Bitcoin, the I'm not a technical guy, I'm not a chart reader, but I just don't see what stops this thing. My gut is tingling. It feels like Bitcoin is going straight to 150K. Do not stop, do not pass go, do not collect $100, $200, whatever it is, like the Monopoly analogy. This thing is just going to teleport higher. And so for me, it's like Bitcoin. I hate being long ETH because of how accustomed I am to hating ETH, but I'm long ETH with leverage like a degen. And I think it's time to start rolling risk out the curve. I think it might be a little too late for Athena, maybe not, no opinion there. But I think Aave is looking good here. I think Aave, once it starts to rally, I'm going to buy a breakout. Aerodrome, I freaking love that token. I think that I think it's going to flip Uniswap. Like you look at the tokenomics and how the team can't
What, like, what? Yeah, what about it do you really like?
buybacks, the way that they share their fees with stakers. I think another great thing about Aerodrome is the fact that the team's tokens are locked. There aren't VCs ready to dump on any
Mhm.
rally. And basically, the Aerodrome team only gets paid if the token generates emissions. Basically, if the product is useful, if the product exhibits utility, then the team gets paid off of emissions. But it's not like they're just sitting on gigantic bags waiting to sell a pop, which is, I think, kind of a very difficult way to set up a, a crypto project or even a company. It's hard to be generous when you create equity agreements or tokenomics. You want to like create some sort of windfall outcome for yourself, like
Mhm.
that EOS founder who just bought a $200 million villa in Sardinia. Like that's kind of what's going through the minds of all these like greedy 22-year-old crypto wannabe rich kids, right? And it takes a really mature group of people to build a product that's both useful and value accretive to the stakeholders, not just a couple of insiders. So, Uniswap, I think it's you look inside what's going on base. Aerodrome dominates most of the liquidity for a reason, right? It's just cheaper to trade there, and people who create pools get bigger rewards by putting it on Aerodrome. The tokenomics are better for Aerodrome. Uniswap, meanwhile, like every VC from Paradigm on down, and Hayden Adams, A16Z, they all have gigantic bags to puke on people, just like they did during the previous cycle. And the product itself is less useful and less interesting for LPs. So, like, for me, if you just design a better product and you're less greedy, this is the same thing that the founder of Vital did when he set it up. He limited his ownership stake to 5%. He's like, I can own 90% of $1 billion company or 5% of a company worth 20 plus. I'll probably have the same net worth in either case ish, but the latter option, allows me to live a more interesting life. I can incentivize the smartest people to work with me. I can travel the world and do cool things and change history. And he wasn't just right. He was so right that he created something that was worth 50 to 100 by doing that, by being generous when it was difficult to be generous, by handing out equity to the people that could help him build something bigger than what he could have built just by himself. And that's why Vital is this like massive, dominant, extraordinary company, and their closest competitors like Gunvor, which are 90% owned by like one kleptocrat. Great Gunvor is a great company too, but it's just like a piddling little afterthought compared to Vital. And Aerodrome is kind of taking the VTOL approach, right? Like they're building for the long run. And that's why I think that token will perform. And there's just, stock and flow, just less selling, better product, higher token price. You're on mute.
I think that's as great an explanation as you're going to get. You really think this thing can flip Uniswap though?
Yeah, I mean, now's the time, right? Because it just broke out. It was like selling off randomly for I don't know what reason, but now it just broke the downward trend channel. We trade crypto. We know how to trade reflexive assets. George Soros's book is, fresh in our minds, you and me. You recommended that book. It's great. And okay, now it broke the downward trend channel. You can't open crypto Twitter now without seeing 15 different people like putting together, like threadors putting together these long theses on why Aerodrome is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that's just going to attract more capital and more stakeholders, more influencers, higher token price, et cetera, et cetera. But there's no dumping, right? There's nothing to stop this one. That's why I like it.
I also think that one thing that's obviously really helped it is the integration of on-chain with Coinbase is like unbelievable. The fact that you will basically be able to interact with Base completely and fully within the Coinbase ecosystem at some point in the future, that's going to be incredible, right? Like you're basically, one of the issues with on-chain that everyone's always talked about is just how difficult it's been to access and how difficult it is for like your average person to use. I mean, if Coinbase can integrate this, then at some point in the future, I assume Robinhood's going to integrate this. And then at some point in the future, you're going to see like a Fidelity, probably like 3 or 4 years from now, actually integrate it. But by this move, you kind of see the writing on the wall, where you're going to get these applications that exist on top of these on-chain infrastructure. You can use that on-chain infrastructure in any way that you possibly could like, but through an easy to work with interface that you just kind of sign up for instead of, creating a wallet. I mean, like MetaMask is going to be the equivalent of using the terminal on your computer, right? It's like there are still people that use the terminal because the terminal gives you greater access to your computer. But most people just, instead of looking for a file or creating a directory on the terminal, they're just going to like right click new folder in their Finder app on their Mac, right? They're not going to be messing around with the terminal, even though the terminal has a lot more functionality. That's the way that I view wallets moving forward. That's the way that I view, your Phantoms of the world, your MetaMasks of the world. I just don't think that they'll be able to compete with a combined on-chain, off-chain experience. They're going to be, I think, obsolete in the next 2 to 3 years.
Interesting.
And what you're going to see is you're going to see all of this infrastructure basically pass through a Coinbase or a Robinhood, which is super bullish for stuff like Aerodrome, specifically right now because it's Base, right? Like the thing that's being integrated right now is Base on Coinbase. It's not, they're not going out and integrating Solana on chain. They're not integrating base level ETH on chain. They're integrating Base. And in the future, that's obviously going to be widened out a lot. But for now, that's just ridiculously bullish for everything on Base.
Nothing said on the 1000X podcast is a recommendation to buy or sell any investments or products. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and the views expressed by anyone on the show are solely their opinions, not financial advice or necessarily the views of Blockworks. Our hosts, guests, and the Blockworks team may hold positions in the company's funds or projects discussed.